Hello, I am Dr. Noni Davis, coming to you from St. C Academy, and it's been a few months since I have been on my podcast here with Mark, and Mark has shown me so much grace, and I really appreciate it. Um, I haven't been here because June was a very difficult month for me. June 20th, my son and my daughter and my partner and I went to a Ali Sadiq concert to celebrate my birthday, my 64th birthday. And then June 22nd was my birthday, and my son Micah uh, bought me a birthday cake, and we all had a nice little celebration. And then he went to work on the 25th, and he had a heat stroke because that was that week when they said, don't be outside. But he was doing some landscaping, which he loved. And unfortunately, he went into cardiac arrest. And on June 30th, he transitioned to be with his ancestors. And it was a very difficult thing for me, of course. My son had a interesting life. This is a picture of him as a baby. He was born in Norfolk, Virginia. I don't know, you see, with his little spiky hair. And he was my firstborn son, and he was an amazing individual. He had a lot of trials. Came in here when he was born. He had bilirubin. He was severely jaundiced, and he had to end up having a blood transfusion. It was really traumatic. And then after that, we thought we got that hurdle, and then we realized he had all of these allergies. He had food allergies. He had skin allergies. He had, and it really affected his psyche. I mean, it really did. Fear of food. He would eat a piece of cake and his whole face would swell out, and then constantly either constipated or runny stomach. It was really difficult, and so we had a rough time. And so because of Micah, which is reason why we have St. C Academy, I chose to stay home. I was in a master's program, planning to be an urban administration, planning to be this a city manager or something like that. But I had to stay home with my baby because at that time there were very few Whole Foods or stores like Whole Foods. And people thought you were crazy if you said your child was allergic to dairy products, because everybody was like, this is disgusting and all that. So it was really crazy and very difficult to find food that he could eat. And, we did completely transformed our life. And so I ended up having to keep him at home. And, and then I had two more children. His dad and I, we had 3 children together. And and so my husband went to work, and I stayed home. And, back he was born in 86. So people were still able to live on one income at that point, and he did pretty good. He was we were in Norfolk, Virginia at the shipyard, and he was an electrician, so we were good. And so, I decided to go ahead and start homeschooling. And so this is a picture of Mike as he got older. And so he's there. He was really a cutie pie. He is a good artist and very affable and friendly and all of that. And but we started noticing that he was having some, experiencing some mental health issues as he got older. And then when we got through middle school, but it was getting difficult for him to learn and focus. And so then by the time we got through our teenage years, you've got the hormones raging and all of that. And so we began to experience a lot of behavior problems. And he was, when he was not sick, he was great. But it was very difficult. It was a roller coaster ride of emotions. And he was finally diagnosed bipolar when he got to high school. And so that made it very difficult for him for school. And so, and at this time, I had allowed him to go to public school because he was with us all the way through like the sixth, seventh grade. And so we let him go, but he was diagnosed with bipolar. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with bipolar. It means that you have these extreme mood swings. And so we'd have a period where he was extremely talkative and agitative and kind of manic. And then we'd go into a period where he was very temperamental and angry, and you know it was very difficult and rebellious. And then we have a period where he would be um, mild. Oh, the perfect child. No problems, very affable, friendly, did what we asked. And then he'd slip right into the next phase, and he would be almost catatonic, almost incapable of even speaking. And he could sit in the same space for hours at a time and not move, and could barely talk. And so it was a roller coaster ride, and I just did not know what to do. And of course, when he was manic, that's when he would get in trouble with the police, and then they'd pick him up and they'd take him to Duke or Durham Regional, and he's been being there for a few weeks, and then they release him, and so that was my life with him. And so one day I decided to take him to Babalao, who was here. And Babalao was an Ifa priest, and just to see what in the world could I do, because I was just so worried about him. And then, I had these three other kids, and his father and I divorced. And then I was in a relationship with my youngest son's father. And so me and my four children trying to, navigate this bipolar. And the Babalao told me, there were two of them, they said, well, what we see is that if he makes it to 30, now mind you, he was 15, if he makes it to 30, you're going to see him completely transform. He will be a new person, and he will be all right. And I was like, 15 years? I got to wait 15 years? And so we went through those teens, and we went through those, um, uh, early 20s, and he would be okay, and then he wouldn't be okay. And like I said, we just had this continuous cycle trying to find the right cocktail for him, and, maybe just change his diet and get his food straight. And then, we just were trying to do everything, and it was exhausting. And it was complicated, and it was challenging, and it was a lot. It was a lot. He would be in a program and then quit. He was in, group homes, and that wouldn't work out. And so everything. So we went through at least almost 15 years in addition to his youth with the food, which I believe agitated. He may have been sick anyway, but I think that this intensity with food from the crib, and this, blood transfusion at birth, all of that contributed to his mental health. But there was this miracle. And so when Micah was 29, he told me, Mama, I am not going back into that hospital again. I am not going to be in any more trouble with the police. I'm going to go into this program. And the program was Caramore. And he volunteered. He called his social worker. He said, come and get me. And, we had been working with these social workers over the years, and we would all sit down and have a chat. We have family members that would, be engaged with him and trying to get him, but he just decided one day I'm done. And so he went to the Caramore program in Butner. And at first he was struggling with that a little bit. But, and he was like, I'm just so bad and I can't get myself together. And, my Judah's doing this and Ariel is doing this and Sekou is doing this. And I'm just the one, I'm the oldest one and I can't pull myself together. And I had to tell him, I said, well, you can't run a race with anybody else. You're the only person in your race. Don't look at what Ariel is doing. Don't look at Judah. Don't look at Sekou. You have to run your own race. You have your own path. And so he went through the program and he turned 30 and he came out of the program and they put him in housing in Chapel Hill. And he lived in a little quad with 4 guys, and they helped him get a job, and he started doing landscaping, and we just saw this dramatic change. The Babalawo was right. He no more problems. He took his meds. He took care of himself. And within a couple of years, he was able to get into his own, graduate from the Caramore program and get his own apartment in Chapel Hill. And he bought his own car. And then he started working for FedEx. He was a FedEx driver. And he just seemed to be on his path. And I was just so excited for him. And then he started, when he was going through his teenage years and his early 20s, he really had unfortunately destroyed his relationships with his siblings. And it was really hard. They were like, he's done this to me and he's done that to me. And I don't want to have anything to do with Micah. And oh, I forgot. He did graduate. That was the one thing we did not. He graduated from Durham Tech. It took us a while, but we got him through school. And, but he, and that was a big challenge. I didn't know whether he would be able to finish, but he did that. So he was very determined. If he set his mind to it, he could do it. But had to have the clarity of mind. And so, like I said, he was working. He was independent. And that was one of the things he always wanted. He said, I don't want to depend on you. I don't want to have to live with you. I just need to be able to take care of myself. And he did it. He did it. And so we saw him, I saw him because I'm mom. So I was like the first one to say, oh, okay. This is Micah. He is who I thought he was supposed to be. He's who I have always envisioned him to be. And he was kind. He was affable. He always had jokes. He would send me all kinds of foolishness. And so it was just glorious to see him, transform and become this great young man. He did try to go to school, but he got his peer support. He decided to let me also see how I can contribute to folks. And this is what he was able to get his peer a certificate of completion. He became a peer support, which meant that he would be able to help folks who were going through the Caramore program, who came behind him, the new folks that were part of the housing program and the job program, and he would be able to. He spoke to them. He became an ambassador and would encourage them. This is what I did. This is how I made it, and how Caramore helped me, and just set a good example. So not only did he finish, but he reached back. He also made sure that he restored his relationships with his siblings. It was very difficult because it took them a minute. Like I said, I'm his mom, and so I was like, "Oh, I see the difference." But the siblings are like, "I don't know." They kept waiting for him to go into an episode and fall back, but he never fell back. And he had those hard conversations with my daughter, and those hard conversations with my youngest son, and my other son, and Judah, and he pulled himself together, and so he restored his relationships. So he reconciled those difficult spaces, and before you know it, he was going to church and hanging out with Sekou, and he would and then when we had my grands, he would go and pick them up. This is him with my grandson, Tunde, at the pool, and he was a great uncle. And this is him with my nephew, Luke, and my mother. And he would go to Frankie's, and he would take them to the park, and like I said, to the pool, and play what is it, pool noodle Star Wars battles with them downstairs. And they just loved him so much. And my daughter-in-law said that when she asked my grandson, she said, "So who's your favorite uncle?" And it was Micah. Micah's my favorite uncle. He would go to his baseball games, and he was just that uncle. He was a really cool guy. And for me, he redeemed himself, and we became really good friends. Uh, and we went to uh, he would come and help me with my yard. So the last few years, we were together. He would come over and say, "Ma, what you doing in the yard?" And I would tell him, and I was thinking about, I got tired of my grass, and so we said, "Well, let's design it a different way and do some rock spaces, gardens, and stuff like that." And so he would be out there helping me with that, and I was like, "Well, what do you think? And how should we design this?" And da da da. He did all of that with me. He would be the one who would load those stones and help me make those pathways, and then he would excuse me, help me with the or, mulching, and pouring out rocks, and just designing the yard. And so, I mean, that was one of his favorite pastimes, but that's what we did together. And those are the things that I'm going to miss with him. He was really so jovial, and uh, the last the last year, he was having problems, with employment. And so, we told him to just move home. My mother was next door by herself. And so he became that grandson who took care of his grandma, taking her to, the pharmacy to get her medication, making sure she got groceries. If she needed a meal, he would go get that for her. And so he served her. The last few months of his life, he was serving her, working, serving my mom, uh, serving us, being that very dear friend to his siblings. So, he was the elder brother. He stepped into that role, and it was a beautiful thing to see. And so what was so hard is that it was just so sudden. Like I said, we celebrated my birthday with the Alice Sadiq concert, and we were there. It was great. We had fun. We were laughing. It was wonderful. The last few days, and then, like I said, Mom, I'm gonna buy you a birthday cake. And so I said, okay, get me chocolate. And that's what he did. He went and got me a chocolate cake, and we all, my brother and Luke, and we all sat down, had chocolate cake uh, on that 22nd. And then the next day, he found out he had a new job, and that was with the landscaping. And that Tuesday he went to work, and but he didn't come to see us. And so we were like, oh, maybe it was because it was so hot and he was exhausted. And apparently he told my niece that he felt like he had done too much. He had worked too hard. And so he just went to bed. And the next morning he went to work. And the oddest thing happened. I mean, I don't know how to describe it except to just show the picture. We were, my phone is about to die, but maybe I can find this picture real quickly. We were in my, okay, here it is. We had the strangest thing. I don't know if you can see it, but that's a peacock. And you see it's June 25th at 8:43 a.m. This is my backyard. I've never seen a peacock. I've been living in this house for almost 30 years, and my mother and father lived next door, so I've been in this neighborhood since 1972. And never seen a peacock, and it was just a cawing. At first, I was like, what kind of animal is that? It was so loud, and it was cawing and cawing and cawing. And I was like, just shocked. And so we got the picture, and I said, a peacock? What is that doing in my yard? Never seen it before. And so my daughter and I had some errands to run, and later on my brother called me and said, hey, did you hear from the landscaper that Micah was working with? He said that Micah passed out and had to go to the hospital. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? What in the world? And, after I did some screaming, talked to the doctor, we had to go to the hospital, and he was there with all of these machines, connected to these machines. And that was June 25th. And he never recovered. He was never able to breathe on his own. He was never, there was no response. With his eyes dilated, no response. And so they determined that he was brain dead. And so they believed it was. And so they sent us home. And on June 30th, we pulled into the driveway, and we heard that peacock again. We heard that peacock again. And then about within the hour, they pronounced my son dead. And so I was like, I guess God was speaking to me and letting me know through the symbolism that he was taking Micah, he was taking him home, and to be with our ancestors. And it was very difficult for me. Losing a child is very difficult, and especially when you have talked to them about their hopes and their dreams, and he wanted to get find a nice young lady and get married, and start his own family and all of that. And so that's what I was praying for. And you know, thinking, well, this is going to happen. Of course, there's hope. You always hope. And so I was hoping. And but I was given that signal of that beautiful bird showing up in my yard, and it was a male bird with all that color, letting me know um, what, or preparing me in some kind of way for something to happen. Um, like I said, my son had a very, very difficult space. And the beautiful thing was that he really moved through those spaces. He was determined. He was to manage, and he had not been in the hospital when he left Caremore at 30. He turned 30, went in there at 29, turned 30. He never went back to the hospital. He had no more medical crises, no more hospitalizations, no more police having involuntary commitments, nothing. He it was 9 years, 9 years, and it would have been 39. He would have been 39 in November, and that would have been almost 10 years of managing his bipolar with no episodes. And so I guess that was what he was here to do. And at his funeral, um, several of my cousins and several of his friends, people, some I knew and some who had experiences with him that I did not know, shared how Micah reached out to them and shared his bipolar, and their testimony was how he had demonstrated he was not ashamed of being bipolar, but he was proud of how he had overcome he had overcome it. It no longer controlled him, he controlled it. And I had so many people tell me that they had siblings who still struggle with bipolar, and how his testimony of his life, it was profound for them, and how it resonated with them, and they wished that their siblings could have that experience. And then, as also my family members who were struggling with their own mental illness shared how he inspired them. And yeah, that was my son. And I love him and I miss him. And he will always be with me. And one of the things I wanted to show is this is the last picture that, oh, this was him celebrating his best friend's wedding. That was in May. And let's see. And this was a picture I took of him. My tall, handsome fella. This was a Kwanzaa gift I gave him, present. And so that's him still standing tall like a African prince or a king. And he was a beautiful person. And I just give thanks that I could share with my son, Micah James Smith, with you today. Ashe.
What a beautiful testimonial to your son and everything like that. And it was a great show. And all along those lines, I think that I had told you, or if I did not tell you, that I did spread the word to members of the network during this hard time. And whether it was Kim, who was one of the founders of the network, or Nick, or whether it was even some of your fellow hosts, they all did express their sorrow with you and all along those lines. So I just wanted to let you know that from them to you, because they did tell me to pass that on to you, and they have gone through some troubling times themselves. I know that Kim is a widow, and I think she lost her husband like about a couple of years ago, and all along those lines. So she still deals with that as
Yeah.
well, and still has him in her heart and everything like that. So she's one of the two founders of the network, along with Nick Valveda, who's in Spain right now, and everything like that. But they did want me to, and even the show before you, both Jim Ead and Rick Rosner, wanted me to let you know that they had you on their mind and everything like that. So I did, and of course, I've always been trying to check in on you, whether it's
Yeah.
through the Haytap family or some of the other families as well. So I do know that it's a difficult time, and then particularly
Yeah.
anytime that you lose somebody that is younger, because I don't think anybody expects that they lose their kids, because it's usually generationally ahead. But we do know that sometimes the kids
Yeah.
precede us, and all along those lines, whether we wanted to or not.
Yeah. And that's where, and my I've had a couple of parents who lost their kids reach out to me, and they were like, this is just a new, this is not something you recover from. You just have to embrace it and forge a new path. And so, but yeah, that was my baby. And
Yeah.
yeah, he did what he needed to do while he was here. And that peacock, I have not seen that peacock since.
Wow. And I know animals have a lot of significance. My mom oftentimes will see turkeys, and I think there's a couple of deers in her backyard and everything like that. And of course, she's always checking in on them to see how they are reacting, because sometimes those animals can be also symbols. Because even at the Hayti, as I was telling somebody recently, there was a time, and I know that Ursula is the name of the Vefe, but there was also a stray cat that used to hang around the Hayti, and part of the people, I think even Daryl and others, used to say that that was probably the spirit of Ursula there and everything like that. And I've not
Yeah,
seen that cat probably now for multiple years, but I do know that he was there. Either he or she, I never got close enough to know the
yeah,
gender,
right.
but I do know that that cat was there for a number of years and would kind of like just appear out of nowhere and disappear out of nowhere. So I do know that there were some people that felt that that was a manifestation, kind of like your peacock of the Veve and the Haitian symbols that are part of the Haiti culture and everything like that. So sometimes
Yeah,
they are symbols that are sent to us that we don't fully understand.
right, right. And and it was just when you saw the size of that bird, it was huge. I'm like, what is that doing in my backyard? I was like, oh my god. But
And
yeah,
particularly peacocks, yeah, because peacocks are not native to North Carolina and everything like that. So the fact that you saw that bird here was definitely probably a
yeah,
symbol. I know that Merlin, which is a bird app, I just recently got because Daryl Stover, who's in one of the African nations, I think he's in Senegal or something like that.
okay,
But he was on a trip for a speaking, an Afrofuturism conference, and I think he's coming back very shortly and everything. But I know
okay,
that even he who turned me on to Merlin, along with uh, the gentleman Anthony Wilson that used to be on TVD,
yeah,
and I think that I saw like an egret or one of the other birds that is not, or a heron, but it's one of the other birds that is not native to this area. And I think one time I even had the app on, and I was like, "How come there's an owl here and everything?" Because we don't usually think of owls in the city and everything like that. But when I looked at my phone app, it was like, "You had an owl outside," and I'm going like, "An owl? What was an owl doing here?"
wow, wow. And so yeah, and so that's our spirit. That's I believe that's a spirit animal for him, or in some kind of way. But
Right.
it was interesting, and so I needed to
Yeah.
do I needed to do that, and so thank you for showing me some grace.
Oh,
And
no problem.
yeah, it, it was rough. I haven't gone a day without crying. I haven't gone a day where I could sleep well either. And I don't know if you
Yeah.
could tell, but I've lost like 13 pounds because even
Well,
eating is hard. Um,
well,
but it's It's just grieving. People said it's grieving. It's going to be
Yeah.
interesting,
It's
but
gonna be there, and I think you told me that you were going through grief therapy, and I know some people that do grief therapy as a part of their practices because they're in the medical field and everything like that. So I do know that we all
yeah,
grieve differently and different ways of grieving, but you've got to be able to figure out what form of grief is going to work best for you
yeah,
and everything like that. Because definitely
yeah.
nobody grieves the same and everything like that.
Yeah, we all have our and yeah, that's what it is. And so yeah, I had a counseling session this right before at 3 o'clock today, and so I've done like 3 sessions, and I'm gonna try. We'll do another one next week, and then she said I can probably space it out a little bit better. But yeah, I have to do it. Um, it has helped me a lot. And then my son got married. My youngest one, Sekou, got married on Sunday.
Okay.
So I'm like on a roller coaster here, like down, 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 and then up, 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 up. And so I'm joyful, but I was still missing Micah because he wasn't the
Oh
best
yeah.
dancer, but he would have been having a ball there, and so I missed him not being there. But it's my thing that I've got to deal with right
Oh
now, and I'll be
yeah.
okay. I know I'll be okay. But I appreciate you, and
Yep.
I will see you next Tuesday. I think I'm
All
back.
right. All right.
All
Well,
right.
look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, and we'll go out with
This-
our usual spot with the kids from Saint Cia and everything like that. But definitely, we'll see you on next week, and we've got a lot going on in Haytown. We've got our last concert of our series that we've been doing with Duke Performances at American Tobacco tomorrow, and all along those lines. So we had a DC spoken word slash neo soul kind of singer that was there last week. There's another, I think, just straight R&B singer this coming week, and then Shauna Tucker was there to start it off. So it was 4 weeks in this month in September that we did straight. So we won't do. Well, actually, that'll be the first. So yeah, we did all 4 weeks in September, and of course, there is talk about trying to find and looking for the new leadership and everything. Even though we have an artistic direction, we've got a new season and everything. Because I know in 2026 we'll have, and it's on the website. Branford Marcellus will be coming to perform. Taisha Coates will be coming to speak because we're going to do a dialogue series. Brandy Younger, with I think a violin player or cello, one of the string instruments will be there, and Britt Bennett. So we've got a number of things. And if you go to heytide.org, you can see what's going on.
okay.
But we've got a full 2026 season.
So the dance classes, are they still on Mondays?
They are back still going on there every Monday. Saw the gang yesterday and everything like that. And ironically, the young lady from Chicago that is from into fashion, and I can't think of her name, even though we were
Yeah,
trying
I
to get
know.
a show.
Tall, skinny, short afro.
Right, right. Because I
Yeah.
know she has been dealing with some grief herself. Because I want to say that her father's sister had passed away, so she had just come back
Okay.
from Chicago to
Okay.
deal with that and everything like that, if I remember correctly. But I know it was somebody in the family that had caused her to go up to Chicago, which is like her
Okay.
home area and everything.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna try to. I had to take my breath.
You got no.
Take
Sometimes you got to take a break from even things that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, and but I think that's also part of my healing process to get back in
Oh
there.
yeah.
And so maybe okay, so but I wasn't sure because I thought that they were having some kind of problem with the air
They were
conditioning.
doing some renovations, but it hasn't impacted African dance. African dance is
Okay.
still going on every Monday. Satos is still which is Tony and Sadia's
Yeah.
class
Okay.
for the
Mama
kids.
Sophia's back. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's back. That's back. They started back, I think, this past Saturday, but it's going to run through December. So yeah, Satos is back as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. My
Yeah,
kids, my two youngest ones, needed that, and they were
yeah,
there from 14 on up. I think Ariel was younger than that. Ariel was in Satos, and so yeah,
right.
yeah. So and
Yeah,
she's 34, so yeah, she was in that for a minute. But thank you, Mark. I
no
appreciate you,
problem.
and I'll
No
see you
problem.
next Tuesday. All right, or
All
maybe
right. See.
Monday. Maybe Monday.
All right.
All
I see
right.
you hopefully Monday and definitely Tuesday here online.
All righty. Okay.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I know my mother.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can play the drum.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Cia student.